My husband Ethan had fallen out of favor. His mistress, unhappy with her unofficial status, barred him from entering her residence. Left with no choice, he returned to the manor every night. This gave me migraines, because the ditzy but well-built male escort I kept had also started making scenes. Damn it! Why did Ethan keep coming back? Did he forget he owns that love nest? When are you filing for divorce? I snapped during breakfast. Get divorced already. Marry me instead. I'm not leaving. Let's see if he can keep sleeping in your room every night. Ethan returned sulking as usual, repeating that lame excuse about noisy foreign merchants near the West District disrupting his studies. At dinner, I casually asked how long the merchant commotion might last. He abruptly pushed his plate away. How should I know? He didn't know. Yet he still claimed the master bedroom that night. I huddled in the corner clutching my blanket, too anxious to sleep deeply. If he got any sudden urges to fulfill marital duties instead of placating his mistress, I needed to conserve my energy for my own lover. I'd known about Ethan's mistress for ages. Our marriage originated from my family's business connections. My father left into befriending the current emperor back when he was just Prince Roan. I proposed this union myself. For the simplest reason, Ethan was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. Being notoriously picky, I'd rejected countless suitors before 20 for being insufficiently handsome. Then at last year's royal garden party, I spotted Ethan across the peony bushes. Dressed in silver-blue brocade, he looked like moonlight incarnate. I made father send matchmakers to the Sullivan estate that very afternoon. Though the Sullivan family's noble status had waned, our own political stock kept rising. The marriage proceeded smoothly until our wedding night when Ethan pretended drunkenness to avoid consummation. Later attempts to seduce him failed. He rejected both my lingerie and jewelry gifts. A month post-wedding, he moved to his West District study house to focus on imperial exams. By the next moon, he'd acquired that lute-strumming mistress. That's when I lost interest. An unattainable prince might be appealing, but a weed growing on that princely mountain? Not worth the climb. So he keeps his mistress. I keep mine. I heard his mistress was not only skilled at playing the pipa but also gentle-natured, a truly understanding companion. Lately, however, she'd begun demanding official recognition. She refused to let Ethan enter her quarters unless he granted her status. But Ethan couldn't comply. Our marriage had been arranged by imperial decree, leaving him no choice in the matter. After 5 days of stalemate, Ethan finally returned to Locust Blossom Lane. When my maid Peach reported this, I changed clothes and slipped out the back gate to Cloudless Street in the Eastern District. Before my knuckles finished rapping the door plate, large hands yanked me inside. A feverish kiss swallowed my protests until my knees buckled. The towering man buried his face against my throat, voice thick with accusation. Woo. 5 days. You didn't come. Feel how much I've missed you. His hand guided mine downward. Lucas, the male escort I'd found fleeing an upscale brothel. Escort he might be called. But there was nothing small about him. His physique could make marble statues weep with envy. His bedroom skills honed through relentless practice. Always the service-oriented type. He'd trail kisses up my calves until I melted before murmuring, "Woo, may I?" This time, I said no. His eyes widened with wounded disbelief. It took several shaky breaths before I could tear my gaze from the sweat-slicked contours of his abdomen. I came to tell you I can't visit for a while. Family matters require my attention. Though bold, I wasn't reckless enough to reveal my true identity. To Lucas, I remained a childless widow using a pseudonym. When we'd met, him half-naked and fleeing debt collectors who'd sold him to that brothel, he believed every word of my fabricated backstory. Simple-minded yet stubborn, he now stood tearing at his belt in panic. Don't discard me. Try again. Keep trying. Don't throw me away. His frantic stripping left only a loincloth when I seized his wrists. My refusal died as moonlight traced the V-line leading south from his hip bones. Well, one more try couldn't hurt. Jacob's face and form were perfection incarnate. Every curve aligned with my desires. That one try dissolved into hours of tangled limbs and muffled cries against pillows. Dusk painted the sky when I finally slid off his waist. Legs trembling as I dressed. Only through vigorous demonstration did I convince him this absence wasn't rejection, though walking normally would be impossible tomorrow. But when I left, he still clung to me reluctantly, grasping my hand to press against his chest. "Emily," he pleaded, "when will you come next?" My expression turned cold as I withdrew my hand. "Jacob, don't get greedy. As my kept man, you should know your place." Fortunately, though dim-witted, Jacob knew better than to push. Seeing my displeasure, he paled and immediately fell silent, wordlessly escorting me out. As I boarded the carriage, I glanced back to find him hanging his head like a scolded puppy. My resolve softened and I reached to ruffle his hair. "Don't worry. I'll return soon." Ah, better humor him. Where else would I find such a perfectly compliant lover? With this thought, I withdrew my hand, completely missing how Jacob's wounded expression transformed into icy detachment the moment the carriage departed. At the street corner, his guard approached anxiously. "Young Master Harper, you really must return home now." Back at the Clark estate, I encountered Ethan returning from his own mistress' quarters. We alighted from our carriages simultaneously at the main gate, me glowing with satisfaction. Him reeking of liquor with stormy eyes that held hidden bitterness. Seeing him reduced to drunken misery over some kept woman, I couldn't help feeling smug. "Husband," I fluttered my fan coyly, "are those foreign merchants still troubling you?" My barb hit its mark as intended. He glared coldly. "Worry about yourself. Emily. You've lost your hairpin." My eyelid twitched. Before I could process this, a figure came hurtling toward us. Sophia threw herself at my feet, weeping dramatically. "Madam Clark, I beg you, let me serve young Master Sullivan, even as maid or concubine." I stared in disbelief. Was I really expected to clean up Ethan's romantic mess? Turning to my equally stunned husband, my retort died on my lips. Across the street stood Jacob, deathly pale yet clutching my missing hairpin. Headache incoming. With Jacob's limited wit, I couldn't risk him causing a scene. No time to savor Ethan's humiliation either. For Sophia renewed her wailing, "Madam, we share true love. You already have the Sullivan name. Why begrudge him someone to warm his bed?" I nearly laughed. This tired routine? I'd seen it countless times growing up with father's endless concubines. I frowned in displeasure and rolled my eyes at Ethan. "Aren't you taking her away?" Hearing this, he finally snapped out of his daze and turned to Sophia with a furrowed brow. "What are you doing?" The question itself was redundant. Wasn't it obvious she wanted to escalate the situation, forcing him to make a commitment or extract promises of legitimacy from me? But he wasn't foolish. Even as the words left his mouth, realization dawned. He barked orders to have Sophia gagged and dragged away, his expression hardening as if witnessing something inconceivable. Sophia's widened eyes remained locked on us until she disappeared from view. I understood perfectly. After all, I was well acquainted with keeping mistresses behind closed doors. Requests for commitment and declarations of affection were mere bedroom games. Public displays like this reeked of poor judgment. True to form, Ethan's face turned stormy as we entered the mansion. I avoided his gaze, my peripheral vision sweeping the spot where Lucas had stood moments earlier. Finding it empty, I exhaled in relief. Watching Ethan's retreating figure, I couldn't help feeling smug. "See? My kept woman behaves better than yours." My triumph proved premature. Back in my chambers, I found the crushed hairpin on the desk alongside a tea-stained message, "Tomorrow at 1 p.m. My eyelid twitched. frantically wiping away the evidence. I pocketed the hairpin. Restless hours followed, my mind racing until midnight when Ethan returned. Had he appeased his mistress? The darkened room offered no answers. He undressed with practiced ease, sliding into bed as usual except this time facing me. The rustle of sheets froze my blood. Was he planning to take his frustrations out on me? I bolted upright just as his hand hovered near my blanket. Our breathing filled the heavy silence until I clicked my tongue in irritation. The sound triggered movement. He sat up too, shadowed eyes burning into me. Emily. His voice cut through the darkness. We've been married half a year. It's time we consummate this union. Consummation? Had he made this offer during our newlywed days? I might have welcomed it. Back when I still admired him not just for his looks, but for that incident at the fragrant pavilion. I'd overheard him defending my father when the new emperor appointed him to the Ministry of Revenue. The entire capital had mocked then, merchant scum parading as nobility. They sneered. Yesterday's cloth peddler. Today's high minister. When merchants thrive through political connections, the people suffer. Only one voice dissented. Appoint officials based on merit. Since His Excellency promoted Minister Clark, she must possess exceptional talent. Why must you pedants be so envious? Pleased by this reasoning, I sought to discuss my father's virtues with the speaker. Descending the stairs, I caught merely a glimpse of moon-colored robes before learning his identity: Ethan Sullivan, heir to the Sullivan dukedom. Young girls dream of romance, though my fantasies differed. After our marriage, when I presented Ethan with rare manuscripts acquired at great expense, he sneered they reek of commerce before discarding them. His subsequent affair with a mistress in Osmanthus Lane extinguished any affection. Now facing Ethan's impassive expression in darkness, I shook my head firmly. No need. Besides, I've had my fill today. That night, I slept in the outer chamber with bedding. At dawn, I packed hastily and departed by carriage, not for Cloud Shadow Street, but my parental home, leaving Ethan a note citing emotional distress requiring respite. Home found my mother and concubines playing mahjong. My father, on official leave, hovered nervously with fruit platters. Fresh pears. Madam? Emily. Need peeled peanuts? Met with brusque dismissions: you're blocking my luck. Go bother someone else. He brightened upon seeing me. Humph. Emily's corner looks cool enough for me. I shared their mild exasperation, particularly when father overreacted to yesterday's incident. This Ethan lets his mistress humiliate you at our estate. Unacceptable. I'll have men thrash him. I restrained him. These days, everyone keeps mistresses. We should be understanding. His appalled look went unheeded as we shared a hasty lunch before I feigned fatigue to dismiss him. Changing into plain clothes, I slipped through the back gate. Walking to Cloud Shadow Street brought me past the Hour of the Goat. The unlatched door revealed an uncharacteristically quiet courtyard. Jacob, who normally greeted me with enthusiasm, lay feverish in bed, cheeks flushed, breathing labored, sweat beading on exposed collarbones where his robe hung open. Hearing footsteps, I opened my eyes to look at Sophia. Silent, I stared at her with puppy dog eyes. The usual Lucas, though occasionally playing vulnerable when seeking affection, would transform into a starved beast once in bed. Yet now I lay there like plucked fruit waiting to be tasted. This extreme contrast made her fingers itch with anticipation. I never believed in restraint. Sophia sat beside me, and she slipped her hand beneath my shirt to trace my abdominal muscles. Jacob, did you drug yourself? I bolted upright. Can't you tell? I gritted through clenched teeth, fever bright eyes blazing. I'm sick. Ah, a fever. Her thumb brushed my burning skin. No wonder you feel so heated. Pity. Withdrawing her hand, she leaned back. State your business. Why summon me? My breath hitched. After prolonged silence came the hesitant question, Sophia, don't you have anything to explain? Explain what? That I'm not actually Sophia? That I'm Mrs. Sullivan of the Sullivan estate? Or that my husband's very much alive while we both keep mistresses? She shrugged. What do you want? Money? Property? The words detonated between us. I lunged, pinning her beneath my scorching weight. You're leaving me? My kiss tasted like desperation and burnt whiskey. Think you'll replace me? Never. She welcomed the assault, arching into me until my grip loosened in surprise. Reversing our positions. She nipped my jaw. Why shouldn't I find others? My throat worked. When prodded. The accusation finally erupted. The whole city knows Emily pursued Ethan's heir first. Am I just his replacement? Some pawn in your marital games? She'd expected anger about the deception. This wounded pride proved far more entertaining. Laughter bubbled up as she kissed me properly. What kind of replacement gets treated like this? Her teeth grazed my earlobe. If I wanted revenge. Darling. We'd be tabloid front pages by now. My skeptical glare demanded more. She sighed against my mouth. Truth is, I'd keep you, if you weren't becoming troublesome. I did keep some things from you. But they don't affect us. Just behave yourself and don't make scenes like my husband's mistress. And we'll stay the same. Okay? This was the first time I'd ever coaxed someone so gently. Thankfully. Whether it was from being kissed senseless or the fever muddling his thoughts. Lucas finally relented. He gritted out his terms, then you can't touch him. Or anyone else. No other man could compare to me. I didn't bother responding to such impossible demands, focusing instead on his kiss-swollen lips. Since you're feverish, maybe I should check your temperature? I trailed fingers down his chest. My feet hurt from walking here. Rub them for me? Mistresses really should pick dim-witted ones like Lucas. After thoroughly demonstrating that even with fever, he outperformed any other man. He even offered to escort me home. Of course I refused. That striking face of his would cause rumors if seen with me. Lucas. I prefer obedient boys. I pressed him back into the chair. His sullen expression made me cup his face, brushing a kiss on his forehead. Be good. We've got all the time in the world. The way he stared up at me in the candlelight felt strangely intense. But I was too satisfied to care. Leaving Willow Street refreshed. I nearly jumped seeing Ethan waiting by my back gate like some specter in black. Madam. He called. Icy gaze sliding past me. Out rather late. Who's that? I turned to find Lucas looming behind me, broad shoulders tapering to narrow hips. Kiss marks visible beneath his Adam's apple. When had he followed me? How hadn't I noticed? My head ached as I froze, unprepared to answer Ethan. Before I could speak, Lucas interjected smoothly, I'm the new guard hired by the Clark family. His expression remained perfectly composed. When our eyes met, he quickly averted his gaze with practiced deference. Every inch the dutiful household guard. Guard? I narrowed my eyes. My gaze swept over his uniform nearly identical to our actual guard's attire, and fresh irritation surged through me. Yet, under these circumstances, I couldn't expose his lie. Instead, I turned sharply to Ethan. Why are you here? To escort you home. His eyes flickered between me and Lucas. I arrived at 3 o'clock. But you weren't at the estate. The unspoken question about my whereabouts hung heavy between us. Every possible answer felt treacherous. Lucas' bold claim about being a Clark family guard trapped me. Returning home now would immediately expose his deception. As my temples throbbed, the main gate suddenly swung open. Mother emerged. Her voice crisp. I sent you to deliver one letter. Not gallivant all afternoon. Her impassive face gave nothing away as she surveyed our trio. Since you're still here, Ethan, join us for dinner. Dinner? My appetite had vanished. The moment we re-entered the estate, I waited until Mother led Ethan toward the main hall before dragging Lucas to my private courtyard. Dismissing all servants, I stationed my most trusted maid at the gates. When certain we were alone, I lashed out without warning, my boot connecting sharply with the back of Lucas' knee. He collapsed onto the gravel path, yet made no move to rise. Back rigid, he lifted his face to meet my glare. Thought I'd adopted some tame pet. Did I? My laughter held no warmth as I gripped his chin. You scheming bastard. Since when could you orchestrate such elaborate schemes? My nails bit into his jaw. If anyone but Mother had answered that gate today, Ethan would have spotted the ruse instantly. My reputation could have been ruined. Was that your aim? True panic finally flashed across Lucas' features, though his gaze remained steady. Emily, I'd never harm you. His voice cracked as fingers twisted in my skirt hem. I can't bear counting days between your visits anymore. He bowed his head, but not before I saw the glint of moisture in his eyes. Would it be so terrible? Let me serve as your guard. I'd see you every day this way. See me daily? I recoiled. How does this differ from Sophia's demands? My lip curled. But I'm not Ethan with his endless compromises. Had you approached me openly like our family's concubines did, we might have negotiated terms. Now, Jacob. I detest being manipulated the most. Snatching back my skirt hem, I sidestepped him without hesitation. A disobedient, uncontrollable mistress? I'd never tolerate that. Ethan and I returned to Loyalty Manor. Karma struck swiftly. However much I'd mocked Ethan yesterday, today's irritation surpassed it. Throughout the journey home, Jacob's heartbroken expression haunted me when I suggested Mother send him away from the capital. He'd rasped with bloodshot eyes. Emily, have you never cared for me at all? A heart? Since when did I possess such frivolity? That's how I'd retorted. Yet watching Ethan freshen up in our chambers, I couldn't resist needling. Darling, did you finally placate your mistress? Last night he'd abruptly abandoned his melancholic act, insisting on consummating our marriage. Now his composed demeanor reeked of smugness. This was pure provocation. I expected his usual cold dismissal. Instead, he paused mid-motion, meeting my gaze squarely. My dear, let's have a child. I laughed bitterly. No longer suspicious, now certain. Ethan truly took me for a fool. Before departing tonight, Mother grasped my arm, whispering urgently, Emily, your Aunt Yu's cousin works at Jade Spring Clinic. After that mistress's scene yesterday, the Harpers summoned their physician. She's 2 months along. They've installed her at Locust Lane. Father's words might be unreliable, but Mother and the aunts never lied. Our marriage came by imperial decree. For the Sullivans to harbor a pregnant mistress before the legal wife conceives? It's treasonous mockery of the Emperor's authority. But with my pregnancy, everything changes. Society winks at men keeping concubines once heirs are secured. Boys will be boys. They sigh, expecting wives to endure celibacy during confinement. My tolerance ends here. I refuse abstinence while he frolics freely. Discovering the mistress's condition yesterday, he suddenly craves marital relations? Has the scandal been contained? Does he plan to legitimize her after I birth an heir? How romantic. The bitterness isn't about his affection for her, but the injustice. His indiscretions gain societal approval, while mine must stay eternally hidden. Slumping into my chair, I glared defiantly. Ethan, while our marriage wasn't my choice either, I'd consider petitioning the Emperor to recognize your mistress. Sure, you'd endure public shaming and royal censure, no fatal consequences. But you won't even suffer that slight inconvenience. Leaning forward, my voice turned razor sharp. What? You expect to reap all benefits while I shoulder every sacrifice? Don't take me for some naive fool you can endlessly exploit. The words were clearly mocking his previous act of overstepping. Originally, our families could have privately arranged the marriage, but he insisted on petitioning the imperial decree. He used the wedding to draw the emperor's attention to his family's estate, helping his father regain political influence. This time, he'd schemed against me again. He wasn't foolish, he understood perfectly. As expected, his expression darkened instantly. His fists clenched as he stared intensely before finally closing his eyes. "Emily," he said hoarsely, "must we be so hostile as husband and wife?" He hadn't considered it hostile when moving to Osmanthus Lane during our first month of marriage. Now suddenly he felt the tension. I almost laughed again, rising to pat his shoulder with feigned sweetness. I purred. "Don't worry, Ethan. I'll never bear your children." My rebellious nature simply enjoys sharpening blades and drawing bows. The night turned lively mostly through my doing. After throwing all of Ethan's belongings from our chamber, I bolted the door. Finally, I wouldn't have to worry about his midnight whims demanding marital duties. Yet sleep remained elusive. My dreams swirled with visions: Sophia clinging to my legs begging for recognition, Lucas kneeling to ask why he remained a secret lover when others gained status. Bad omens all. At dawn, my mother's maid reported Lucas had been escorted from the capital. I resolved to visit the gentlemen's club for new companionship. The first candidate lacked Lucas's striking features. The second's chest muscles couldn't compare. Regarding other attributes, I told the third prospect, "Drop your trousers. Let's see your endowment." The man blushed awkwardly. Nothing like Lucas's confident shamelessness. Disappointed, I left empty-handed. Returning home brought worse news: Lucas had escaped his escort, disappearing after leaving the city. My mother warned me to lay low, preparing for potential retaliation. But her concern proved unnecessary. Lucas's limited intellect likely prevented elaborate vengeance schemes. 2 peaceful months passed, my only irritations being Ethan's constant presence at the estate to suppress rumors, and restless energy with no outlet since losing my secret lover. As time dragged on, my restlessness grew palpable. Perhaps noticing my prolonged avoidance of marital duties despite the stream of fertility tonics delivered to Sephora Lane, my reclusive mother-in-law emerged from her prayer chambers. She suddenly demanded we accompany her to Mount Liahua's temple fair. During the journey, she made pointed remarks about women's duty to bear heirs and proper wifely conduct. At the summit, she ushered me into a guest chamber where the Wang family matriarch, known for her medical skills, took my pulse to prescribe conception remedies. Surrounded by pilgrims, I maintained my plastic smile through gritted teeth. After listening to their coordinated lecturing veiled as casual chatter, I excused myself for fresh air. Outside stood Ethan in silence. Seeing my frosty expression, he still followed despite my displeasure, deliberately prodding. "What did mother discuss with you?" I ignored him until we passed a courtyard. A girlish voice trilled from within. "Brother, I can't stand temple food. Let's leave early." A deep male voice replied. That single syllable froze me mid-step. I'd recognize that voice anywhere, even breathless and impassioned. Raising my eyes, I saw an aristocratic young woman clinging to a man's arm. The man wore midnight blue brocade, his striking features unmistakable. Our gazes collided. Jacob. He hadn't left the capital. Had he become someone's kept man? Before this thought fully formed, an elegant matriarch emerged. Her attendant addressed him. "The incense ceremony awaits. Lord Jacob." Lord. While many nobles held that title in the capital, Jacob stood apart. Following his gaze, I locked eyes with the Duchess of Huayan, whom I'd met at the royal garden party. "Ethan of the Clark household?" The Duchess smiled. "We knew your mother during her youth. Is Lady Clark here? You must join us for the vegetarian feast." No one refused the imperial family's favored relatives. Within the hour, Even Madame Clark found herself seated in the temple's private dining hall reserved for the Harpers. Throughout the meal, Ethan's eyes kept darting between Jacob and me. Finally, he raised his teacup with strained courtesy. "You seem familiar, Lord Harper. Have we met?" Common remark about common features. Jacob's lips curved, though his gaze burned into mine. "How enviable, you and your wife pilgrimage together." "I've only my mother and sister for company." Ethan's smile stiffened into porcelain politeness. Instead, it was me who was on edge, terrified that Jacob might spout some outrageous nonsense. I hastily excused myself to escape. Jacob being the heir to the Harper family? That revelation left me utterly speechless. I felt equal parts anger and mortification, remembering all our previous absurd encounters and the intensity of his gaze moments ago. I wished the ground would swallow me whole. Leaving the meditation hall, a maid suggested I stroll on the less crowded mountainside. Distracted, I agreed. It wasn't until I entered the woods, finding nowhere to sit, and watched the maid rush downhill for a stool without my instruction that suspicion crept in. Deciding not to wait, I turned back. 2 steps later, a large hand clamped over my mouth from behind. Before I could struggle, a towering figure pinned me against his chest. "Sophia, don't be afraid. It's me." Jacob's voice rasped near my ear, his breathing ragged. His arms locked around me with bruising strength, as if trying to fuse our bodies together. "I'll release you if you promise not to scream." When I nodded, his grip loosened incrementally. The moment I gained freedom, he crushed his lips against mine in a feverish, desperate kiss. Only when I kicked his ankle did he stagger back, pain flashing across his face. "Have you lost your mind?" I hissed, scanning the empty woods. He said nothing, dark eyes boring into me. "You were furious when you first saw me today." He finally spoke, advancing with each word. "Was it because I stayed in the city? Or because Emily clung to me?" By the time he stood flush against me, retreating felt like surrender. I met his gaze defiantly. "What difference does it make?" "All the difference." His eyes ignited. "If it's the latter, it means you still care." "Care about you?" I scoffed coldly. "Prepare for disappointment. My heart belongs to no one but myself." Unlike his usual theatrics after rejection, his gaze dropped to my lips. "I heard you replaced me with Ethan the very next day." He murmured, voice thick. "Months confined after rushing home to you, only to find you discarding me like yesterday's news. Flirting with your own husband so shamelessly. How cruel." I gaped. "Ethan is my lawful husband by status. You're not even my official lover anymore. What right do you have to judge?" But I didn't have time to respond. He stepped closer, pressing my hand against his chest with a pleading gaze. "Awu, even if your heart isn't mine, I still want you. These past 2 months made it clear I need you. Let me move back to the house on Dark Cloud Street. Visit me whenever you're free. I'll never cause trouble again." His voice trembled with desperation. Beneath my palm, his heartbeat raced, quickening my own. The offer was tempting, especially when the layers of fabric under my hand hinted at his sculpted chest. But the heir of the Harper family, becoming my kept man? A casual fling with some random guy was one thing. Jacob's status was worlds above mine. One misstep, and everything would burn. No. Too dangerous. I pulled back. We both walked away unscathed. "Let's pretend none of this happened." His face fell, wounded. But as he opened his mouth to protest, his expression shifted abruptly. "Look out!" He gripped my shoulders, swapping our positions just as a blade sank into his shoulder. Assassins. 2 masked men, their swords aimed at me. I dodged the next strike blindly, stumbling sideways. When the second attacker lunged again, Jacob kicked his wounded assailant aside, yanked the sword from his own shoulder, and parried the blow. Blood soaked his shirt as he fought with feral precision, shielding me instinctively. Within moments, he wounded one attacker. The other hissed, "Retreat!" before both vanished into the trees. Only then did Jacob stagger into my arms, his clothes drenched crimson. I'd never seen so much blood. Panic clawed up my throat, but I forced calm. "Can you walk? Let's get you down the mountain." He gripped my wrist, frantic. Wait, if I don't say this now." The movement tore his wound wider, pallor worsening as fresh blood spread. "I lied before. That night at the escort agency, I ran into you after escaping a setup. I faked being a stranger just to stay near you, and earlier, I didn't mean any of it. I followed you home because I wanted more than secrecy. I want everything. If I survive this, give me a chance. Leave your marriage. Be with me, openly." Sweat beaded on his forehead as he searched my face, hope raw in his eyes. Moved? Not even slightly. I only felt irritation and the urge to roll my eyes. Taking several deep breaths, I barely restrained myself. "Dying people don't chatter this much. If you've got time for dramatic farewells, hurry down the mountain and have a physician check your head instead." Jacob passed out, whether from anger or pain was unclear. Before losing consciousness, his red-rimmed eyes glared at me furiously, looking dangerously close to tears. His large frame made moving him impossible. Fortunately, help arrived quickly from below. Ethan appeared, his gaze briefly sweeping over Jacob's prone form before landing on me with evident displeasure. Without questioning, he immediately directed attendants to carry Jacob downhill. The temple fair ended abruptly due to assassins. During our return journey, Ethan rode in the carriage with me, his knuckles whitened against his knees, tension finally snapping as he demanded, "The Harper family's heir. Was he the guard who escorted you home that night 2 months ago? Why were you two alone in the backwoods?" The mask of indifference had cracked. My heart sank. The confrontation I dreaded had arrived. Maintaining calm eye contact, I deflected. "Rather than obsess over this, perhaps address your mistress's mess." He stiffened. "Explain. Didn't I mention? Today's assassins targeted me. I've no enemies in the capital. Even those opposing my father wouldn't strike at me. Only one person resents me enough, your mistress in Huaihua Alley." Leaning forward, I continued, "I never let my maids leave my side outdoors. Yet yesterday, my attendant got scalded, forcing me to borrow your household's maid today. Coincidence? That same maid lured me uphill, then conveniently disappeared when the attack came. If Jacob hadn't intervened, I'd be dead." Ethan left with a terse "I'll investigate," abandoning the carriage to ride directly to Huaihua Alley. He didn't return that night. I stayed busy, dispatching an anonymous tip to the magistrate's office, not from spite, but self-preservation. The magistrate had already launched an investigation into the Harper heir stabbing. My letter prompted immediate arrest warrants for Sophia. When my mother Emily visited at dawn, I hadn't slept. They caught 2 assassins near the temple, she reported, sipping tea. They confessed Sophia hired them. Your aunt's uncle at the magistrate's office says the mistress claims pregnancy, accuses you of planning to kill her after the birth. Her gaze sharpened. Your thoughts? I'm innocent. She's lying. The words burst out. Emily's arched eyebrow showed she remained unconvinced. Your aunt's cousin's niece has connections within the Harper family household. Rest assured, Ethan has regained consciousness and is in stable condition. I froze. Since when was I concerned? I suspected Mom knew something. With multiple aunts in the family, our social web tangled like knotted yarn. Yet her mahjong sessions never yielded idle gossip. She neither confronted me nor led on, simply patting my shoulder before leaving with that all-knowing maternal gaze. "Emily," she said, "if your father needs marriage alliances to secure political standing or court favor, that's his failure. This truth applies to all men. Remember, you owe nothing to anyone but yourself." After she left, relief washed over me. The tension dissolved into unexpected tears. My mother had always been unconventional, unbothered by father's concubines, treating them as sisters, rejecting traditional feminine virtues to raise me untethered. For years I'd questioned her affection. Today, I got my answer. Restless in bed, I instantly noticed the intruder's furtive movements. Ethan wouldn't creep like this. assuming Sophia's scheming. I stayed still until lips crushed mine. Jacob's chuckle warmed my ear. I know you're awake. My first thought, are you insane? This is the Clark estate. My second, weren't you dying hours ago? The sarcasm evaporated against his oblivious grin. You worried about me? He beamed, clutching my hands. I knew you cared. His newly acquired boldness unsettled me. Ignoring protests, he slid beside me, arms encircling my waist. Thank God it wasn't you. He murmured into my hair. Last night, if anything happened, I can't lose you. Let me fake my death. I'll stay as anything you need. The thrum of his heartbeat beneath medicinal linen made me pause. We'd never shared such vulnerability. For once, I didn't pull away. I gave up and looked up at him. Jacob, I said seriously, have you ever considered that even if I divorce, I might not marry you? He matched my seriousness without hesitation. Then I'll take your family name. Same difference. I thought he'd lost his mind. Watching his utterly convinced expression, I belatedly realized his sudden excitement. Oh, does this mean you're actually considering divorce? My mouth opened but no words came. Truthfully, I should have denied it. Yet my gaze fell to his injured shoulder, an unexpected pain tightening my chest. Only one thought remained: if this scars, it'll ruin the smoothness I love to touch. Ethan returned while Jacob still lingered. The persistent fool kept badgering me. Oh, when are you filing? Tomorrow? Let's wed the day after. Hearing servants greeting Ethan in the courtyard, Jacob bristled. Why is he back? Doesn't he have his own house? His eyes widened in horror. Wait, does he sleep in this room every night? Has he defiled this bed? I marveled at human capacity for idiocy. Anxious about discovery, I hissed, just leave already. Never, he gritted his teeth. I'll hide under the bed. Let's see if that bastard really shares your chambers nightly. He actually started crawling beneath the frame until I kicked him. After imprinting a furious kiss on my lips, he vowed I'll return, and escaped through the window. Ethan entered as I settled at the vanity. Dark circles bruised his sallow complexion. Was it you? He demanded without preamble. That anonymous tip to the Metropolitan Police Commissioner? Because of your letter, Sophia miscarried. Gone was the dignified air resembling rare orchids. Now he resembled an unripe bitter gourd clinging to a vine. I detest bitter gourds. I didn't deny it. Rising calmly, I met his glare. Correct, reporting Sophia for hiring assassins seems justified, but let's not linger. Ethan, I want a divorce. This decision wasn't sudden. The seed planted when he'd moved to Magnolia Lane had grown roots. Initially, newlywed obligations and political fears restrained us both, he avoiding imperial displeasure by taking concubines openly, I protecting my father's career, but with my mother's blessing, the charade ended. As expected, Ethan refused. He gritted his teeth. Emily, why are you suddenly demanding divorce? His eyes darkened abruptly. According to the assassin's confessions, you were getting cozy with Jacob at the back hills yesterday. I asked this because of him. Have you known each other long? He mentioned Jacob again. This time, I didn't deny it. What of it? You should have anticipated this when you manipulated the imperial marriage arrangement and kept your mistress hidden, shouldn't you? Stunned by my admission, Ethan momentarily froze before snarling, divorce? Emily, you'll never escape this marriage. But I wasn't seeking his permission, merely informing him. I moved back to my parents' estate. At dawn next day, Ethan and the Sullivan family rushed to stop me. Their efforts proved futile. My mother had already dispatched our household guards. Apparently she'd consulted my father beforehand, who reluctantly conceded, fine. Let the court censure me. Haven't I endured enough imperial reprimands? Wait till morning court. I'll petition for the divorce decree myself. I restrained him. Patience. Neither Ethan's potential theatrics nor his stubbornness concerned me. That profit-driven social climber valued his family's reputation too much to risk antagonizing the Harpers through petty retaliation. As predicted, when Jacob's assassination case concluded, the scandal exploded across court and taverns alike. Sophia, Ethan's mistress, had hired killers to eliminate his lawful wife, only to be thwarted by Jacob's accidental intervention. Sophia received exile sentencing while the Sullivans lost their noble title. Yet Ethan never exposed my prior acquaintance with Jacob. He lingered daily at our gates demanding audience. I refused. 2 weeks later, he finally knelt before the emperor, spinning tales of being deceived by wicked women and nobly releasing me to spare further suffering. His masterful performance salvaged public sympathy despite undeniable guilt. When the emperor sought my father's counsel, he readily consented. On receiving the divorce papers, Jacob slipped into my chambers that night, buzzing with excitement. "When do I move in, Emily?" the fortune teller says. He stood too close, annoyed by his chatter. I pushed against his chest, useless against his height. He seized my wrists, pulling me flush against him. "Not tomorrow? Next month then?" His breath warmed my neck as the grandfather clock chimed midnight. Our shadows merging on the moonlit floorboards. Somewhere downstairs, my mother sighed dramatically about modern courtship theatrics while my father chuckled over bourbon. He lowered his gaze, staring at me with accusation in his eyes. When I met those pitifully earnest pupils, my resolve softened. The rejection already on my tongue suddenly felt impossible to voice. Yet I couldn't bring myself to lie either. After careful consideration, I said, "Jacob, what I feel for you, it might not be the sincerity you're hoping for." The memory of him last demanding my genuine affection remained vivid. This time, I expected another outburst. Instead, he simply took my hand and pressed it against his chest. Through the fabric, his fingers guided mine downward in slow exploration. "Amber," he murmured, "you desire my body, don't you? If you crave my flesh, doesn't that count as wanting me?" The arrogance in his tone matched the physical confidence beneath my palm. His body heat seeped through the linen as my thoughts began to wander. My gaze dropped to his parted lips, that cruel curve now softened with anticipation. He noticed instantly, dark eyes glittering. He breathed, "You want to kiss me, don't you? That hungry stare, you're dying to taste me." His voice swam through honey and smoke, equal parts restraint and temptation. I didn't deny it. Compassion had always been my weakness. "Good." His whisper curled like smoke. "Then where would you have me?" Patience spent, I gripped his collar. His laughter warmed my mouth as I claimed those mocking lips. Truth meant nothing to me. Not after witnessing how even my formidable mother failed to obtain or believe in it. But it hardly mattered now. Jacob and I had endless days ahead for this dance. No need to rush.